Today we're going to speak of the power of now, eternity. These reflections are from James Allen's book, All Things Added, in which was broken up into two parts. Part number 2 is the heavenly life. I discovered this audio version of the book just last year, and it would show up in a time where I felt that I was ready to understand it at a deeper level. Such is the case when it comes to a lot of esoteric information. That as we continue down this journey and we bring forth our vision and live in and from an ideal state of mind, which is one with who we really are, from the perspective of love as articulated in the conversation we had on Sunday from Neville Goddard's quotes, what we realize is that we understand how to bridge the esoteric information with the exoteric. Now, eternity, or now, is something that we want to recognize and value more so. Otherwise, we have a tendency to detach ourselves from, psychologically so, this present moment where all power exists, and perhaps relive certain things from the past, creating a disconnect or bringing us into different states of mind that are not in alignment with how we really want to be, which is in harmony with the vision. As we maintain this ideal state of mind, we understand eternity as now. Here are some textbook definitions for eternity as we get into the discussions from quotes from the heavenly life. Infinite or unending time. A state to which time has no application, timelessness. Now, James Allen articulates this very well when he says, "Now is thy reality in which time is contained. It is more and greater than time. It is an ever-present reality. It knows neither past nor future, and is eternally potent and substantial." Now, this quote will be very helpful for us on our journey to realizing our vision, because what is being suggested here is experience from the perspective of love in relation to whatever shows up. This includes people, environment, circumstance, and information. The meaning and interpretation we are giving to these aspects of reality is either based on what is in harmony with our vision or what we assume to relate to our past. And thus, we are either creating from our vision or revealing from our vision or recreating or re-revealing from our past. One of the best ways to bring ourselves into this center of now is to value this moment. So I speak a lot with those that are in the career space, the entrepreneurial space, the business space. And one of the things that I'd like to recognize is the degree of harmony in relation to the vision that they are representing in that moment. And essentially, through all conversations, what we do in leadership is bring each other into the state of mind that's in alignment with the vision, which is essentially the now. So the simplest way I discussed this a few videos ago was to just pick the next task and see it all the way to completion. This helps us bridge the esoteric with the exoteric. And as a result of bridging this, what ends up happening is we find ourselves deeply in the now, living in the ever-present reality. Now he says, all things are now, all power, all possibility, all action is now. Not to act and accomplish now is not to act and accomplish at all. To live in thoughts of what you might have done, or in dreams of what you mean to do, this is folly. But to put away regret, to anchor anticipation, And to do and to work now, this is wisdom. So, the tendency to dwell on the past in relation to whatever it is that shows up on the journey, again, people, environment, circumstance, and information, can create unnecessary reactive-based experiences, which is really based on interpretation, the beliefs, the assumptions, the perspectives that we are identifying with. What are we saying I am to, as we've been discussing? And when we realize that all things are now, all power and all possibility is now, then now is really something that we want to be in from the perspective of our vision. And you know when you're in that state of mind that's ideal with the vision, because you interpret things accurately. You're able to see how things are related. You're able to connect the dots. And this is found through bridging all aspects of being: spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional. If there's disconnects between these areas, what we find is overthinking or reinterpretation from the past from a place of disharmony. What we want is accurate interpretation in relation to the vision while in the now. And the subconscious mind is stimulated by our imagination, what we are thinking. What we want is to dwell in the thoughts, the perspectives, the imaginal activity in relation to the vision in regards to whatever it is that we are experiencing. Now, as mentioned, this is something that we get better at with practice. So, thus, if we find ourselves being reactive and so forth, it's important to take a moment to release from that. As you get better at it with practice, you'll be able to release from those interpretations in the moment, because it's the interpretations. Since we are the interpreter of reality, then we are the ones assigning this meaning. And so thus we want to reflect upon what he's saying here, which is why when I came across this audio version, I'll put a link in the description to the audio version of this book in 2020, I found that replaying it again and again reminded me again of this power. As a matter of fact, I would play it while I was running, after I would finish my day-to-day tasks. Many of you know that one of the things that I enjoy doing on many evenings is run. I don't necessarily run 7 days a week, but usually about 3 or 4 days a week in the evening. After a long day of doing all the things that I have to do, I like to reconnect myself back to certain ideas and realizations in the present moment. I find running and exercise does this for me. While listening to James Allen's The Heavenly Life, I found that through the experience, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual integration through running and listening to what he was suggesting, I started to understand this even more so. Because as we've been discussing, that when we learn something, and this is a very deep, profound understanding, the power of now, eternity, and we live by it more so each day, we're able to understand it even more beyond conceptual understanding. What we want is being, integration, living the philosophy. Now he says, when a man is dwelling upon the past or future, he is missing the present. He's forgetting to live now. All things are possible now and only now. Without wisdom to guide him and mistaking the unreal for the real, a man says, if I had done so and so last week, last month, or last year, it would have been better with me today. Or, I know what is best to be done, and I will do it tomorrow. Man has all the power now, but not knowing this, he says, I will be perfect next year, or in so many years, or in so many lives. The dwellers in the kingdom of God, who live only in the now, say, I am perfect now, and refraining from all sin now, and ceaselessly guarding the portals of the mind, not looking to the past nor to the future, nor turning to the left or the right, they remain eternally holy and blessed. Now is the accepted time Now is the day of salvation. Now again, we want to reflect upon these quotes and these perspectives on a regular basis. Because for whatever the reason may be, as we go about dealing with the things that we have to do each day, we could find ourselves going into different states of mind, as we've been discussing through the Neville Goddard information. There's a possibility that we go into different states of mind all throughout the day, and what we want is the ideal states of mind that are in harmony with our vision. What ends up happening usually is when a person lives in the now, if there is any interpretation of the past or the future, it's somehow in contribution and in harmony with the vision. For example, let's say a person had a conflict with somebody in the past, and now they find themselves doing the things that they know they have to do each day, the day-to-day activities and so forth. But for some reason, they keep replaying that conflict in the mind. One of the questions that they could ask themselves is, why is it that they're playing this conflict in the mind with this person? And what are the effects of playing this conflict in the mind? Knowing that as a result of it, and in relation to what he's suggesting here, that we are not ceaselessly guarding the portals of the mind. Thus, as a result of it, we put ourselves in a position to recreate that conflict again with the same individual or ourselves or others as we go about the day-to-day journey, creating this unnecessary complexity. If in that moment a person can release from that and say, is there another way to reinterpret this person? Is there another way to reinterpret this conflict? As a result of reflecting upon how to accurately assess in relation to the vision. Maybe this person is a team member or a major contribution to some project. And by seeing them differently, more accurately put, in relation to the vision, what happens is that they notice that the conversations tend to be more flow-based. See, what we want is to allow, the key word is allow, the bridge of flow-based incidents to occur through us and bring forth that vision. And this is done in the now. Because as he suggests here, now is that reality in which time is contained. It is more and greater than time. It is an ever-present reality. It knows neither past nor future, and is eternally potent and substantial. Now, to understand this at a deeper level, we must live this with practice even more so. And we do this by observing the inner interpretation, the tension and reactivity in relation to whatever shows up on the journey to realizing the vision. If we take a moment and value the opportunity to release from these interpretations, or through the process of revision, or at some point, which is what I recommend many to do, is to carve out the time at the end of the day to reflect upon these certain kinds of experiences that had changed your state of mind for whatever the reason may be, knowing that we are giving the reason from within. And then changing our relationship to those attributes. And as mentioned, there's only 4 subconscious mind modalities that I work with, and I continue to work with. Self-talk, and we've done many discussions on self-talk. Revision, changing our relationship to past attributes, if they seem to be showing up from the perspective of recreation or reliving in the moment in relation to. We have the power to change those relationships. As well as subconscious mind audios, which you could look at this as a form of subconscious mind audio. And as I look back at when I was running and listening to The Heavenly Life by James Allen, and again, I'll put a link in the description to the video, I recognized that that subconscious mind audio, the suggestions that were contained within, were further integrated because I was allowing those suggestions, because those suggestions contained within are ones that I trust. I relate to them. I've been studying James Allen, his work, for many years, over a decade. However, what I did find is this particular part 2 of All Things Added by James Allen, for some reason, was only brought to my awareness in 2020. And accurately and synchronistically so at the right time where I felt I could really understand and value it. And so by listening to it, allowing the suggestions to become, because remember we spoke about this, we become, in the last video, what we think from in relation to our vision. So I want to further integrate these ideas because I found that it was the key for me to live more in this power of now, eternity that he speaks of, so that I could remind myself if I was going into different states of mind or different ways of thinking that was revealed in the tension and reactivity, that was revealed in the inaccurate thinking that may show up. And to be able to catch it at the right time, as we've been discussing, which has been inspired from the 7-Day Mental Diet by Emmett Fox. I did a discussion on that, a number of discussions. I'll put a link in the description to that. Because we recognize that we can release prior to the dwelling in certain thought processes, which brings us into different states of mind and thus brings forth certain experiences that are not in harmony with the vision directly, but, some way, somehow, we find ourselves back on track. But why create the unnecessary complexity if you have the power to release from those thought processes in the moment? So we do it, which, by the way, I recommend the integration of meditation into a daily practice. Really, 2008 was when I started to actively practice meditation. I found that I was developing an ability to the meditative practice to identify when I was identifying with thoughts or states of mind, the greater ability to do so. As I continue the meditative practice, which is just 20 minutes of focusing on my breathing in and out and releasing from thoughts, I find that was practice for concentration, which was essentially the ability to observe what I was identifying with, what states of mind, what thinking patterns, and so forth, thus allowing me to bring myself back into the eternal now, where all power, all possibility, and all action exists that is in relation to the vision. And so he shares this affirmation, which I really like, which integrates everything that we're talking about to a deeper level and a deeper degree of living in and from this kind of way of being, which is, say unto yourself, I will live in my ideal now. I will manifest my ideal now. I will be my ideal now. And all that tempts me away from my ideal, I will not listen to. I will listen only to the voice of my ideal. Thus resolving and thus doing, you shall not depart from the highest and shall eternally manifest the true. He also says, act now and lo, all things are done. Live now and behold, thou art in the midst of plenty. Be now and know that thou art perfect. This is probably one of the most influential sections for me as I was listening to this over the last year and still listening to it regularly. Some of you that are on my Instagram know that this week I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And on the day I flew out, I posted on there that I was going to listen to The Heavenly Life again. And I reflected upon it and posted a quote on there. Because, again, this kind of information here, when we're speaking about the power of now, eternity, we want to recognize that this holds the key for a lot of the confusion that we may experience on the journey. Neville Goddard refers to this a few times. All day long, people are conjuring up imaginal scenes and imaginal people and creating arguments in the mind. Now, this is not just with people. This is also with circumstances, environment, information, whatever it is. And that's an indicator of not living in the now. We want to release from that. Live. And as mentioned, one of the easiest things for me to do, which is what I share with others that I work with on this journey to bringing forth the success that they desire, is I just pick the next task and see it all the way to completion. And this can be done with the morning routine, the work day, the end of day. Go into the activity. deeply engage with it. Those that are in the fitness space understand what I'm referring to when I speak of this, and you can relate it over to the mind and muscle connection. I'm also a big enthusiast of practicing, deepening this mind and muscle connection, that the deeper the mind and muscle connection, the more you can stimulate, and what may also appear as a greater degree of challenge to stimulate, because you can really feel it. However, with the challenge comes flow, because flow is where challenge meets skill. And thus we find ourselves deeper into the now. So let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation. And let's make a commitment that we are going to further integrate this understanding from James Allen. We can say, I recognize that the power of now is eternity. It is infinite. And as a result, all power, all possibility, all action is now in relation to my vision. And as a result, I step into it, moving forward in accomplishment to my vision, living in the thoughts of love in relation to my vision. I find that it's easy to let go and detach from what is not in harmony and in relationship with my ideal. As a result, it's easy for me to put away regret and to anchor anticipation and to live now, realizing the infinite wisdom within myself. Through this infinite wisdom within, I'm guided in understanding the reality of my vision via the five sensory integration. As a result, I dwell in the kingdom of God now. As a result, I automatically guard the portals of the mind, recognizing that I live in my ideal now, reflect upon and integrate and live by the voice of my ideal now. As a result, I act now and understand that all things are done. I live now because I recognize that I'm in the midst of plenty. By representing and being now, I know now how I am perfection. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.